Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons. We take a darker tone on things that we do, and we'd like to build that edgier kind of content. So if that sounds like it's for you, please like, share, and subscribe. Please keep commenting. We love to hear your opinions about everything we discuss, as well as anything else going on Dungeons and Dragons wise. We'd love to hear some of your stories about the awesome things you get to do in game. This week's video is going to be a little different. I'm going to go on kind of a crazy rant about why I hate 1D&D. So, first and foremost, I really don't like covering Unearthed Arcana because a lot of it is subject to change, and I'd hate to have something building up on something so unstable. So it's a lot of issues for me. I really don't like to cover that kind of concept. But with 1D&D being really important as to the future in D&D, I've been covering it when it's been coming out. A lot of 1D&D that I cover has been pretty lackluster. Some things seem pretty good. Some things are just mediocre. A few things were great. But the issues are, it's Unearthed Arcana. That's a big part of it. And I'm going to go into some of the other things as to why I dislike that. Unearthed Arcana, again, specifically with 1D&D, there are surveys afterwards. I encourage everyone to take those surveys, voice your opinions to make sure this game does not end up being something that you dislike. And it's very important that you do so. Please take those surveys, put all that information, because they actually do read that and they actually do respond pretty well. It's one of the better things about this company. First thing I want to really discuss is that 1D&D isn't going to be a new edition. It's not. It's not going to be a jump from like 3 to 3.5 to 4. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like 1 to 2 or 2 to 5. Like, it's not going to exist in that kind of a format. A lot of the things have been streamlined to a point where it can't really get that simpler to play. It's really just minimizing a lot of what the older editions had and kind of breaking it down to a simpler format. That being said, what I would like to see from 1D&D isn't going to happen. It's just not. And I'll get into that next. But what 1D&D is a patch. And if you play MMOs or if you play any online game, a patch is where the company, the gaming suppliers, they kind of revamp some things that aren't working, fix some balancing issues, make anything that's too strong and nerf it down to a moderate level, and try and keep a certain level of equality between difficulty, playability, and fairness. That's what 1D&D is. Two-weapon fighting is a perfect example of this. It is really, really difficult to use optimally in 5e. It just is. Is it a great system? No. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. 1D&D did bring up a lot of valuable points to make two-weapon fighting something desirable. So now you want to be a character wielding two swords because it's cooler that way, as opposed to right now where you're kind of just weighing the option of whether or not one extra attack is worth it, as opposed to just getting something else. And it weighs heavily on your decision making, and it ends up being never the option that people choose. Thematically, it looks cool. How many heroes have used two weapons? That's what the patch is. It took that from where people constantly complained about it and made it better. Now, two-weapon fighting is a very cool idea because you gain an additional attack as part of that action. So now you're more deadly because of that. That's the concept that you kind of wanted. You wanted to feel that. Now it's a viable option. That's what 1D&D is to 5th edition. It is just a patch. It is making things a little bit more streamlined, making things a little easier. The Ranger is a perfect, excellent example of this. It started out horrible in the player's handbook. People absolutely hated it. Don't get me wrong, it was far worse revealed to be reviewed as it was in actuality. Like, it really wasn't that bad. And they spent a lot of time revamping it over the course of constant books, subclasses, and things like that, and even Tasha's to just ramp up even the Beastmaster. But 1D&D made the Ranger very strong and very powerful and something that's really, really heavily desired now. It's a patch. It brought something that the whole community conceded to be low and required you to be one or two specific subclasses in order to be a valuable Ranger. And now you don't have that because now the Ranger is just powerful. Again, I never really felt that way. I happen to love the Ranger. I think it's great. I don't think it really needed all that stuff. But is it stronger? Yeah. Am I happy about it? Yeah. But it's a patch. That's all it is. It's trying to figure out these kinks that people have complained about and bring it over. It is not a new addition. A lot of other content creators have a lot of issues with 1D&D. A good friend to the channel, Insight Check, this guy is great, fantastic. If you've never seen his videos, there's a link in the description. Please check him out. He's awesome, very nice guy, very cool, very well thought out ideas, and he has a lot of experience, and he really knows what he talks about. One of the things he covers a lot is backwards compatibility. I see where he has this standpoint because of concern with how things are building forward and how things are changing. And without revamping the monster manual in a similar fashion, which I imagine they will, 1D&D is going to have a very difficult time being backwards compatible. It's just the fact, because the monsters have to be scaled up into a reference that reflects the new characters. If they all get buffed like the Ranger did, then they're all going to be significantly stronger, and then they're going to just topple everything around them. These are concepts that have to be redesigned and reformatted, but I personally am not so worried about it. My major issue with backwards compatibility is, what is it going to do to evolve the story? Or to give you the options to maybe change things instead of necessarily being so level game. Maybe you can make these games higher level. Maybe you can bring them to that level that people desperately want. If you can do Curse of Strahd and go up to level 18, like, that would be cool. That would really add the impact of how dangerous Strahd is and how impactful that world is. Because currently you go up to maybe 11, 12, and yeah, it's a great campaign. It is awesome. But there's a certain level of if this is so powerful, why don't I get to be this strong to fight it? And that really takes away. So maybe backwards compatibility might include guides or something to help bring things up to a newer level of content, or help gauge things so they work out to that fashion, or how to scale up the monsters appropriately. Backwards compatibility is an issue. I don't think it's really that concerning, because ultimately it's the maps and the story. You can always change out the monsters. And I know a lot of people who are newer DMs and who are trying things and trying to stick to the module. It's harder to feel like you're making an impact when everything becomes so easy for your players to win. They have to be challenged. They have to feel like their fights were hard won. And that's kind of the goal from both standpoints. You don't want things to be easy, but you don't want them, you know, to be insanely difficult. There's a happy medium there. And when you buff characters and you buff player characters and races and classes, you're so strong, it's hard to balance just by level. And you add multi-classing in and things like that, and things change in a very big fashion. So it's really a balancing issue that they're gonna have to address, that I think they're slowly working their way towards, but we're only seeing just the player character part, which is really annoying, because yeah, it's cool to see these things that are coming out, but I mean, outside of taking away crits from monsters, what do we learn? What do we know about monsters? What are we doing about constitution saves? Is everything just going to be constant undead and fiends where everything's immune or resistant to poison? Or are we going to get some things that are a little different? Are those con scores going to be different saves for these monsters so you can't hit things like blight and feel really good about it as opposed to being completely deterred from it? There's a lot of things that are just not working, and for things to progress forward, they have to be reworked in order to make that kind of consistency feel good about what's going on and what's to look forward. And there's so many unknown answers and so small segments of it that it's just very annoying to see the same kind of thing and not anything that's going to give it the foundation needed to support that. 1D&D is not changing the wheel. It's just bringing an older edition up to a newer standpoint. And I would love to tell you that everything's going to be perfect and it's awesome, but it's not something that brings me joy to cover, because there's so much of it that's just not building towards the things I want to see in Dungeons and Dragons. As a whole, what I really want to see is level 20 campaigns. It doesn't have to be a lot. Drop 1 or 2. Like, give us that opportunity to reach this level cap. I mean, so many of us have played for countless years. You can count on one hand how many times you've hit level 20. You know, you have all these abilities, all these things, all these items that you want to use, all these characters you want to fight, all these great capable things you want to do. And there's no campaigns that way. Homebrew is basically covering all of the level 20 content because it's too hard. A lot of people fear making high level combat, and high level combat is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. Like, you're level 20 and it's as dangerous as level 1 combat. At any time you can realistically go down. Some of these monsters, one round will destroy some people. If they get past the tanks, like, that's it. Someone might die, and they're smart enough to kill them when they're down. Whether or not players do that, DMs do that, it's dependent on the DM, and I get that. I like high level difficulty, I do. But not everybody does, not everybody plays that way. But without a structured framework of how to handle that in proof by setting up fights and showing a module that builds up to that kind of a level, it hinders people with not a lot of experience that want to try and do it but are like scared of trying it and get pushed in this way of just, no, just keep it lower level because it's easier to deal with. DMs, you're spinning a lot of plates. It's a lot already just making a campaign and doing it. High level combat adds a lot of fear to that. A module or two that give you up to level 20 will be dynamic and giving people a structured, tangible thing that they can work with to reach that level. Everyone wants to hit that level. I mean, how many paladins have looked at like their final ability and were just like, I need that? How many fighters want that 4th attack? It's just something that we desperately want as players, as DMs. It's fearful, it's difficult, it's not something anybody wants to do, it's uncomfortable, and having a couple of modules would really make that easier and break that tension. It's going, wow, it's laid out here, and now that I've done it once, it's easier to do. You know, we can try these things, we can do these great things, and now you can have characters that start out with this legendary backstory, not worrying too much about it. 1 D&D does not do that. Dragonlance didn't do that. And I was hoping Dragonlance would, because Dragonlance is supposed to be this epic, this dynamic, incredible storyline, like this incredible world. It's just high-level masters of everything. And it's, I think, a level 12 campaign. You know, like, there's a lot of things that are really missing, and 1 D&D isn't an attempt to fix that. It wasn't designed to be, it wasn't supposed to be, it's not anything like that. And that's something that we desperately want as a community, but 1 D&D doesn't do anything to include that. If all these player characters are this strong and we're getting all of our max level abilities at 14, then why isn't 16 the level cap? Why do we have Tyranny of Dragons go up to 16, maybe 17, and just, that's it? Like, why do we have these extra levels? Give us that power and break it down so that way we have them at points where it's usable, or use the full scale. 1 D&D doesn't do anything to change that. In fact, 1 D&D helps to cement the fact that highest level campaigns are still going to run to about 16, 17. So it almost diminishes this idea of getting high level combat, high level campaigns where you can be a demigod, where you can be a human fighter that's so well renowned, you're the champion of a kingdom, where kings go after you for help, and they go seeking your advice and your guidance. Wizards, you're so well versed in magic that arcane academies reach out to you for help. That's what level 20 is. That's what people want their characters to be. You want to be Iron Man, be an artificer level 20, and have that full capability of your intellect at your fingertips, tangibly changing the world. You'd be a god king. You'd be able to build a great steampunk-like world from the ground up because you're that smart, and people will flock to you because your inventions can change the world. That's the feeling that you should get when you reach high-level games. That's the feeling your character should be at, and you'll never get that, and 1 D&D just cements everything going into the other way, where like 15, 16 is just the best that you can do. Just bring those spells down a little bit, make it more viable to use them. How many times are you going to cast Wish? Realistically, without using the deck of many things. How badly would you love to cast that spell? You never get to him most times, and it's like a pipe dream. And there's nothing in 1 D&D that's cementing anything go otherwise. Yeah, it's great to use some of these abilities, but some of these spells we've been foaming at the mouth for. Just to see actually be used, just to know, like, wow, that's incredible. Like, oh my god, I didn't realize it was that strong. It's missing. And 1 D&D is not giving us a reason to believe otherwise, that it'll come, that we'll be able to get to use it. I mean, Who doesn't want to use Blade of Disaster and Eldritch Blast? Like, where are these spells going to go outside of just a dream of being able to do it? Our final thoughts. 1D&D really just is a patch, and a lot of the things that are happening about it that people are covering, that people are concerned about, there are real reasons to be concerned, and I really suggest everybody take the surveys and voice those concerns to try and mitigate things in the game that you don't want, because a lot of us are right there with you not wanting it. But it's not the new edition. It's really just a patch. And it's not something to be super excited about. It's really just a lot of Unearthed Arcana that's being released that we have a voice and say, hey, don't do this. This sucks. And I encourage people to do that. Again, I'm just living on a prayer here, hoping for the things I want to see out of Dungeons & Dragons. And the best thing about Dungeons & Dragons is if this releases 1D&D and you don't like it, continue playing 5e or whatever older edition you want. People are still playing these editions because they love them, because that's what brings them joy. So keep bringing yourself some joy, and your friends, they will find you, and people who want that same experience will also be scouring the world to try and find you and be able to play. They exist. We're out there. But don't get too hung up. Don't get too stressed out. Don't worry too much about it. It's not worth a headache. It's an option for you to voice your opinion, and if you don't like it, don't use it. Just use a previous edition. You can take any campaign really and make it into a 5e. You just got to sit there and do the math. Bring the right kind of monsters. Sit there looking at the monster manual and kind of try and figure out how to balance it. You know, follow the formula that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide and work things out. Player character strength, great. You know, it's something viable that you can use, mitigate what magic items you reveal, and you can balance pretty much everything that way. The good thing about 1D&D is you're going to see subclass features you never do. And it's all going to happen at 14th level. So, start breaking out those few and far between 15th level campaigns and really go for it. Or, you know, start making your own and do homebrewing if you really want to. And there's a lot of options there. There's a lot of great stories to be had. The purpose of Dungeons & Dragons is to have fun. If you're not having fun doing things in a way that you don't like, switch to a way that you do. If you don't like working with 1D&D, don't. If you don't like doing 5e and you're excited for 1D&D, be excited. I'm not here to discourage that. I really want you to be happy doing whatever it is that brings you joy. I love this campaign. I love this game. I love everything about it. I'm absolutely going to try 1D&D. Most likely I'll play a bunch of it. But ultimately, it's the story that you write with your players, with your DMs. That's what makes this the best role-playing game in the world. Because you have that option, because you can do these great things. And if you work with a great group of people, you can have dynamic moments in character that are fun, that are awesome. And don't weigh too heavy on whether or not balancing is going to work. Don't weigh too heavy on whether or not things are going to be great and everything's going to make sense, because one way or another, you're going to find a way to have a great game, because you're going to play with the right people, and that's where it's all going to come from. So, that being said, I hope Wizards of the Coast don't ever see this video, but I really do hope that some people can kind of just understand and reflect with what I'm saying here, and take a step back and not freak out or not get too excited, because it's just Unearthed Arcana. It's nothing set in stone. It's just patchwork. So, that being said, thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.